Saturday night at dusk, Bill Wallace and Lyndon Tucker stood outside the Cabbage Island Salmon Club camps. They were saying goodbye. They would not see each other again for a year. Bill paid Lyndon for guiding him and tipped him $20. $20 was the biggest tip Lyndon had ever received for guiding. Bill Wallace had had a few drinks and was feeling generous. He could afford to be generous. Bill Wallace was a millionaire who had just purchased a $50,000 salmon pool for $1,000. Lyndon Tucker had been drinking too, and was feeling quite good. "I didn't catch any salmon this year," said Bill, "but I'll be back next year. I want to put up a cottage next year, Lyndon, and by golly, I want you to be one of the carpenters." Yeah, sure. Done a bit of carpenter work. Wouldn't mind working on it. Yeah, sure. I'll work on it. Well, Lyndon, I think I'll get my gear together and go to bed. I've got a long drive tomorrow, and Lillian and I will be rising early. It's been good doing business, yeah? See you next year. We'll get a lot of fish next year. If we could figure out what that young Paladin Ramsey is doing, we'll catch them all right, Lyndon. How many do you think he's caught in the last few days? Well, he got 6 one day, he told me, so he did. 6, yeah. 6 one day and 4 the next. Yeah. 6 one day and 4 the next, and 7 today. That makes 6 and 4 and 7. How many? 17, I believe, Lyndon. 17. Yeah, 17. Did you buy a few from him to take back with you? I sure did, and I bought 8 from him. I'll tell the boys back home that I caught them myself. Yes, sir. Tell them you caught them yourself. Yeah, ha. Well, good night, Lyndon. Yes, sir, good night. We'll see you next year. Next year, yeah. Yeah, next year, yeah. Yep, take her easy. Bill Wallace escaped into the camp. Lyndon Tucker was in a mood for celebrating and headed out for Bernie Hanley's store. Dan Brennan, Bob Nash, John Caston, Bert Todder, and Stan Toomey were all standing around Bernie Hanley's store, gossiping, eating oranges, and drinking Sussex ginger ale. When Lyndon Tucker arrived, he pulled a pint, already half empty, from his belt, and ordered a bottle of ginger ale and treated the boys. Yes, sir, the best sport I ever guided. Tipped me $20, so he did, $20. And give me a fishing rod, brand new rod. Give it to me, so he did. $20 and a fishing rod, just like that. He said, what he said was, I want you to have it, he said. Give me a rod, just like that, yeah? That old lad I was guiding didn't catch a fish all week and didn't tip me a cent, said Stan Toomey. My sport fished from daylight to dark, caught 4 salmon and a grouse, and only tipped me $2. I reached right in me pocket and gave him 5, told him he might need it to get home on, said Dan Brennan. Remember that old lad I was guiding in April? The old lad wouldn't be in the river, said Bert Todder. Yeah, I remember him. Same lad you were guiding all week, weren't it? Asked Stan. Yeah, it's the same old geezer. I never heard that story, said Dan Brennan. What happened? Well, I was guiding him in April, and he wouldn't be in the river. I was going up the river with that 10 Johnson outboard motor, and he was in the front. When he needed to pee, he pulled out this pickle bottle and started to go in it. The wind was blowing really hard, and it kept blowing back all over me, just kind of a fine spray, if you know what I mean. I snubbed her up quick, I tell you. I ain't drinking your pee all the way back to Gordon, I told him. All the men laughed. Oh, yeah, commenced Lyndon. Sold that old shore of mine, sold it. Yeah, no good, that old shore, got rid of it. So I did, got rid of it. Might sell the whole place yet. Moved to Fredericton, I think. Moved to Fredericton and take her easy. There were no secrets in Brennan's siding. All the men knew that Lyndon had sold his property. Somehow, Bert Todder had found out. You'll get a job looking after that lad's camp when he gets it built, won't you, Lyndon? He didn't say for sure. I might. You never know. I think I'll sell the whole place and move to Fredericton. Lay right back in Fredericton. I'd sell that old place of mine some quick, said Bert Todder. That old shore, anyway. Them old shores ain't no good to 'em, man. Should be able to sell that old shore of yours, no trouble, Bert. The mouth of the Todder Brook is right there. There's always salmon at the mouth of the brook. Why don't you sell it and get a big chunk of money for it, said John Caston. Them old shores ain't worth nothing. Ain't worth nothing, no, said Lyndon Tucker. Sold mine, so I did. Yep. Think I'll move to Fredericton. Lay right back, take her easy. Yeah. Lillian Wallace was not laughing. 15-year-old Lillian Wallace had a tear in her eye. Lillian Wallace said, I'm going to miss you, Dryfly, and meant it. Gonna miss you too, said Dryfly. I'll come back next year, Dry. We'll get together again, next year. A year's a long time, said Dryfly. You could come down and stay with us, play at the Red Lion. Yeah, maybe. Will you write to me? If you write to me. Over the past few days, Dryfly had spent every possible minute with Lillian Wallace. They walked and talked, sat around the veranda drinking lemonade and soda, They swam and went on picnics and kissed and hugged 42,001 times. They were very much in love, but the word love was never spoken. Dryfly wanted to say it now. Dryfly didn't want Lillian to walk out of his life without her knowing how he felt, and he wanted to know how she felt about him. He wanted to say, "I love you," and wanted to hear her say, "I love you too." He held her close, smelling the fly repellent on her neck, feeling her warm young body against his own. He kissed the tears away from her cheek. This is it, he thought. This is the last time I'll hold her. I might never see her again. Dryfly wanted to cry too. Dryfly would never forget her. He would never forget the short days and nights they'd had together. He was totally in love with Lillian, in love with the stars and the moon, in love with the river and the warm July night. Dryfly had wanted to say "I love you" so many times during the past few days, but for some reason couldn't twist his tongue around the three little words. Now, with tears welling from his eyes, while kissing her tears from her face, while looking into the big, tear-filled blue eyes he adored, while feeling her warmth with the reality that he might never see her again, he thought he could say it. "Lillian," he whispered. "Lillian?" "Yes, Dryfly?" "Lillian, I love you." There was a silence, during which Dryfly could only hear their heartbeat and their breathing. Then Lillian pulled away from him. She looked at his tattered sneakers and ragged jeans, the same shirt she had washed for him 3 days ago, his hair parted in the middle, his long nose, and his eyes. He had tears in his eyes. Crying with all the spirit of a child, she ran into the camp. Dryfly swung and started walking. He didn't know where he was going, and he didn't care. All he knew was that he needed to walk. "I'm in love," he thought. "I'm in love with Lillian Wallace, and she's gone. I'm alone. I can cry now." He unleashed a flood of tears. When he got to the Todder Brook Bridge, he found Shad waiting for him. He didn't want Shad to see the tears, but there was no stopping them. He approached Shad and stood before him, weeping like a hurt child. When Shadrach saw that Dryfly was crying, he did not speak. Neither did Dryfly. They stood eyeing each other, Dryfly crying and Shadrach not knowing what to say. Shadrach knew one thing, though. He was sorry for the things he'd said about Lillian Wallace. "You all right?" said Shadrach when he finally found the words. "I don't know. I guess. I'm gonna miss her too," said Shad. "I love her, Shad." "She'll come back, Dryfly. Don't cry. She'll come back. Maybe. Maybe." "Let me pull you up to Gordon," said Shad. "We'll get some wine at the bootlegger's. We'll have a drink of wine and talk." "Wine? I ain't got no money for wine." "I got that $10 Nutbeam gave me. We'll get some wine and have a talk." "Okay, might as well." Shadrach and Dryfly went to the Cabbage Island Salmon Club and slid off quietly so that no one would hear them in one of the club's canoes. Dryfly found some consolation for being on the river and cheered up a bit. The river reflected the blue of the sky, the stars, the moon, and the forested hills. Except for the swish plunk of the pole and the rippling sound of the canoe cutting the water, all was silent. "She didn't say it," thought Dryfly. "She didn't say, 'I love you.'" "You know what, Shad?" said Dryfly a little bit later. "She's the only woman I ever loved." "Me too," said Shad. The boys had one more bond between them. Knock, knock. "Who's there?" Shadrach and Dryfly. "Oh, no." Nutbeam arose from his cot, went to the door, and opened it. "What do you want?" "We got some wine, Nutbeam," said Shadrach. "Thought you might like a drink." Nutbeam had gotten home early from his radio listening trip. He had listened to the Saturday night jamboree outside of Shirley Ramsey's house. Again, he had crept closer to the house so he could peek through the window at Shirley. Shirley was sewing a shirt for Paladin and looked very beautiful to Nutbeam. Nutbeam wanted very much to meet Shirley Ramsey. Later, lying on his cot, he had given his predicament thought. "She's a good woman. A man should have a woman. Shirley Ramsey needs a man. I could keep her, look after her, but what's the use? She'd never look sideways at a lad like me." "I'm gonna have to do something," Nutbeam said aloud to the camp. "I'm not getting any younger. Let me see here. I'm 46 years old. 46 and never had a woman. Sweet 46 and never been kissed." Nutbeam had spent many hours during the last year thinking about his lonely situation and had concluded that the loneliness was getting to be too much. He was beginning to talk to himself. "I'm going crazy," he said. "Talking to yourself is one of the first signs of going crazy." When Shadrach showed up to unlock his little secret, Nutbeam had been very upset, nervous, yes, and even a little afraid. But now, there in the dark on his cot, Nutbeam felt that maybe Shadrach's appearance had been a blessing in disguise. Maybe the good Lord was looking after him, and had sent Shadrach to find him, to flush him out, to reveal him to the world that he either would have to face or go insane. Setting all other predicaments aside, Nutbeam, there in the dark on his cot, was a very troubled and bewildered man. And then, knock, knock. If I don't face this young fellow and play some sort of game, the young brat will blackmail me. I shouldn't have offered him any money in the first place. And now he's brought that young Dryfly Ramsay back here in the middle of the night, looking to blackmail me. I'll have to face him. I'll have to play some sort of game. Mind if we come in, said Shadrach. It's awful late, said Nutbeam. Ain't late. Ain't even 12 o'clock. What do you want? Don't want nothing. Just came to visit ya. Was telling Dryfly here about ya. He wanted to meet ya. Nutbeam sighed. Come in, he said, but just for a minute. Awful dark in here. Ain't you got a lamp? Yes, I have a lamp. Nutbeam struck a match and lit the lamp. Nice place you got here, Nutbeam, said Dryfly. Just an old camp. I like it. Would you like a drink of wine? Asked Shad, pulling a bottle of sherry out from under his jacket. I haven't had a drink in 10 years, said Nutbeam. Go ahead and have a drink. It's good stuff, Golden Nut. No, I think not. Aw, come on, it won't hurt you. Have a drink of wine. Good for you. Keeps the lad from staring at you. Shad had adopted Keeps that lad from staring at you from Bert Todder. Nutbeam stared at the bottle. It would be nice to have a drink with someone, he thought. He sat by the table and took a small sip of the sweet wine. He felt that it was indeed quite good. Shad and Dryfly smiled at each other and sat on the cot. Bought that with the $10 you gave me, Nutbeam. Wanted to show you that I didn't waste the money. Have another drink. Take a big one. That's no good. Take her down. Help yourself. Nutbeam took a bigger drink. Good stuff, said Nutbeam. Where'd you get it? Gordon. From the bootlegger and got Gordon. We left another bottle outside, so don't worry about running shy of her. The three sipped from the wine, and it wasn't long before they commenced to feel its effects. The conversation flowed a bit easier, and although Nutbeam hadn't really talked to anyone in a amount of years, he found that the words were coming surprisingly easy. He thought he might even be enjoying himself. The boys weren't making fun of him either, or they didn't seem to be. They actually seemed to like him. You play guitar, Nutbeam said to Dryfly. How'd you know that? I know a lot of things. Yeah, I play, but not very good. You play good. Nutbeam took another drink. You sure have some nice rifles, said Shad. You like me rifles? Sure do. What's that one? Shad pointed at the rifle he fancied most. That's a 30-30. Good gun, that. You must get a lot of deer and moose and stuff, said Shadrach, still admiring the rifles. I get what I need. Hey, what's that thing? Asked Dryfly. Trumpet. Really? What's it for? It's a musical instrument. Can you play it? Ain't played it much lately. Would you play it for us, Nutbeam? No, it makes too much noise. Can't play it anyway. What do we care if it makes noise? There's only the three of us. Not tonight. You know what we should do some night? We should bring back the banjo and the guitar and play some music. You could sure let loose back here, agreed Dryfly. No one would ever hear you back here. I can't play very good, said Nutbeam. Sure you can, said Shadrach. All you have to do is practice. They'd hear me all over the country. Nah, never in a million years, said Dryfly. Never hear you way back here. Play it, Nutbeam, urged Shad. Maybe later. When the three finished the first bottle of wine, Shad went and retrieved the second bottle. With the $10, he had purchased 4 bottles. He and Dryfly had consumed one on their way from Gordon. If they finished this one, they still had one left. Shadrach was in a party mood. Soon, Shadrach started to sing. He wasn't much for carrying a melody, but he loved to sing, so he bellowed one dirty song out after another. Between the songs, the boys told dirty jokes. Nutbeam was forgetting himself. Nutbeam actually laughed at the dirty songs and jokes. This was the best time that Nutbeam had ever had. Shad got up and danced around the camp. Yee-woo! He whooped. Yee-woo, and her name was Maud. He grabbed the trumpet and tried to blow into it. Nothing happened. Here, Nutbeam, old dog. Nutbeam was getting drunk and caught up in the excitement. He took a bigger-than-average drink of the wine, grabbed the trumpet from Shadrach, stood, and commenced to blow. Barp, barp, beep, barp, barp. Shadrach and Dryfly couldn't believe their ears. At first they just stared at each other. Then they smiled at each other. The smile turned into a chuckle. The chuckle turned into hilarious laughter. They laughed at Nutbeam's big lips trying to manufacture sounds on the trumpet. They laughed at Nutbeam's big ears and lanky body. They laughed at the awful noise Nutbeam was making. But most of all, they laughed at the reality that there before them was none other than the Todder Brook Whooper. Shadrach was already starting to get ideas. Staggering homeward in the middle of the night, Shadrach said to Dryfly, "What do you suppose a nice lad like that would live his life in the woods for?" "He's got big floppy ears," said Dryfly. "Yeah, but there's got to be something else." "Inferiority complex," said Dry. At the crack of dawn, Lillian Wallace stirred, rose, and got dressed. She put on her blue shorts, pink blouse, and sandals. Then she went to the dresser and peered into the mirror. She combed her hair and looked into her tired, sky-blue eyes. If she had smiled, her full young lips would have revealed clean, well-kept teeth, but Lillian Wallace did not feel like smiling. When she was satisfied with her appearance, she picked up a pen from the dresser and jotted down 3 words on a piece of paper. She put the note in an envelope, wrote Dryfly on it, started to look and seal it, but decided against it. Then she, with the envelope in hand, left the room. 3 seconds later, she stepped into the gray, pine-scented Dungarovan morning. Every bird that could sing was singing. Lillian needed to think. To think, she needed to walk. She went down the path, over the hill, and across the little bridge Stantuni had built over his brook. A fingerling trout swam beneath the bridge, but Lillian Wallace, there in the cool, dewy morning, did not take the time to watch it. She would be leaving the Dungarovan in a little more than an hour for Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and needed to see Dryfly Ramsay one more time, or at least be close to him. She followed the brook until she came to Stantuni's field. Crossing the field, she stopped to pick a daisy. She put the daisy in the envelope with the 3-word note and sealed it. By the time she got to the railroad, her feet were soaked with dew. She didn't care. She was almost there. In a minute, she stopped in front of Shirley Ramsay's house and peered at the window. She thought she might be Dryfly's. In the gray dawn, she eyed the drab, paintless structure before her. She had the sandy lawn and the car tires. They were cut diametrically in two and placed at the ends of the culvert. A sandy path led to the front door. In another car tire beside the path, Shirley had planted a geranium. Lillian went to the door and stood for a moment. She wanted to knock, to awaken Dryfly, to hold him, to feel the warmth of his body, to kiss and hug and love him like he'd never been loved before. Lillian Wallace, young and beautiful, alone in a strange land, standing at Shirley Ramsay's door at dawn, whispered, "Sleep tight, Dryfly, my prince of the Dungarvan. I love you." Quietly, so as not to disturb anyone, she slid the envelope beneath the door. Without looking back, she returned to the Cabbage Island Salmon Club. Back in her room, Lillian sat on her bed to wait for her father to awaken. She knew she would not have to wait long. Bill Wallace wanted to get an early start.